Namaste and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Digitalk with Impactsure Technologies. Thank you for your time and presence. As we all are familiar with the fact that technology is playing an important role in the manufacturing industry and supply chain industry, a new survey by McKinsey finds that responses to COVID 19 have speeded the adoption of digital technologies by several years, and that may changes per year for a very long haul. We have Amazon now using drones for delivery, Roomba robot used for house vacuum cleaning. So great development. Today, AI-based technology is helping large to mid-sized organizations to minimize on human error, optimize on the automation, and capitalize the business outcome and focus on customer experience. At Impactsure Technology, we have a plethora of such tech products that helps in facilitating day-to-day operations built for scaling speed and security. We are committed and focused to improve clients' business outcome and deliver quality. With this, I would like to invite our speakers. Yes, they are the subject matter of our product. Our first speaker is Subramanian Nilakandan. He is a CTO Impactsure Technology. He's a technocrat with 24 years of rich technology experience and 12 patents. He carries an interesting mix of industry experience right from electronics to software, from banking to manufacturing. He has set up QA organizations from ground up and have managed a team of 150 members. He also carries experience in procurement, capital market, BFSI, energy, trading, and telecom domains. He's having hands-on experience in automation tools such as Selenium, QTP, and built own frameworks. Have worked with global clients like Kellogg's, ExxonMobil, Chevron, UBS, Sprint, and few others. He's the one who has helped the larger organizations to improve on efficiency and quality by establishing core software development processes such as DevOps, Agile, CMMI, and ISSO. I would now like to talk more about our second speaker, that's Ashish Jha. He's the head of product and planning with Impactsure Technology. He carries 15 years of experience in focusing on enterprise software, product management. He holds two patents in advanced delivery and executions. He collaborates extensively with customers, analysts, and partners to bring competitive market solutions and user-centric delivery and designs. He's done his PGP from IIM Kozhikode, an engineering degree from NIT Jamshedpur. He is a certified Scrum product owner and an active Agile practitioner and trainer. He has worked in companies like Tata Steel, Zycus, SAP, Genpact, and GEP to name few. We have been hearing and talking about digitization since 2020, since the COVID era. Digitization that is all about using technology rightly for efficient data capturing, processing, standardization, and maximizing profitability. Modern technology has become one of the important channels of connections to do businesses with the help of digitizations to get better outcomes. We can now capture not only data and insights from the sectors that is directly relevant for the consumers like retail, food chain, e-commerce, but even sectors dealing with small and medium enterprises like manufacturing of different commodities are too using technology to integrate processes and come up with insights for new opportunities and business expansions. We have seen larger organizations like Colgate using SAP HANA for data integration and analytics, and small manufacturing organizations like, example, white goods and textile industries also now adopting various digital technologies. If everyone believes that digitization is a must and one can actually solve many complexities with its help, a thumbs up on the chat box would help. Can I have some thumbs up on the chat box? Well, it looks like maybe you might take time to absorb this information. So if we are all ready now to look through how digitization helps in eliminating or solving complexities, the major challenge that we're facing is how to keep with technology that are new and drive maximum benefits from it. At the same time, what do you think about skilled labor workforces who should be equipped to manage day-to-day operations? To throw some light, I would like to call upon our CTO, Subramaniam Nilakandil, the tech expert, to take the charge and tell us how to transform this challenge into an opportunity. Over to you, Subramaniam.
Thank you, Yasmin. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for your nice introduction. And welcome all the audience. Yeah, I would like to take this opportunity to talk about the actual Industrial 4.0 revolution. So where actually industry started to brief upon, and then from there we can answer these questions very well. So if you actually see the current industrial revolution or industry is called as Industrial 4.0, or it is also called as a smart factory. So initially the industrial first revolution started in sometimes in 18th century. So where actually the initial stage of machines, manufacturing in bulk started. And that is when people realized like we can do something in much higher pace and much higher quality and much higher productivity. And that's how it actually the journey started. And then eventually Industrial 2.0 came in with more modernization, more computers coming into pictures and all those. And then third industrial revolution started, like the robots, mechanical robots, CNC machines, where like it's all started there in Industrial 3.0. And now Industrial 4.0 is the main theme is currently we are talking about the machine talking to machine. So that's the primary theme of Industrial 4.0. So now when machine talking to machine, so it can optimize it on its own. So if, for example, you want to produce something and you have set a target like, for example, you want to produce a 25,000 tons of some steel or something like that. If there is a process in latency or if there is any machine failures, then that will impact the complete productivity and also it will give a huge loss. So now if the other machine knows, normally the production would be a sequence process. So if in a sequence process, if the first stage machine failure or first stage machine productivity is low, and the second stage machines understand it automatically, and then it adjusts its production. So there will not be any wastage. So that is how it is actually been looked upon in the Industrial 4.0. So machines talking to each other and optimizing on its own. So that the current manual workforce, which is actually the skilled laborers, we call like the main, the high-end people who are actually working, especially trying to optimize the production, try to give the more production with less energy, with less raw material, less wastages. So that is what actually currently it is working on. And with the Industrial 4.0, this can be further automized with latest advanced technology, like for example, artificial intelligence, machine learnings, all those high powering algorithms, high what do you call, like high computing algorithms, which enable the computers to compute and compute huge amount of data, process it fast and give an output. So that is basically the current revolution, Industrial Revolution 4.0, which we are currently working on. So now coming to the another major important topic, whether this is going to replace the skilled laborers or going to replace the people. So that's the reason which we actually started with the Industrial 1.2. Every industrial revolution we were actually talking to that whether this is going to replace the people, but we have seen it has not been replaced the people. It has what actually it has enabled to skill up the people. It has changed the skill set. Like previously people were using the ledgers and the accounting book to keep the accounts properly. Now people are using computers. That doesn't mean that accounting department itself has vanished. There has been the accounts department has upscaled. They have been able to now use latest software, latest computer applications. They are able to use latest calculation mechanism. But still, there will be a team. There will be a people. Just we are upgrading the skills. maybe the areas where there are 10 people, we might be reduced to 2 people, 3 people, but at the same time, we are upscaling. And probably those people will be able to find a job or will be able to get a job if they are upgrading their skills. So that is how it has been looked at, and so that's the key important factor. So technological advancements and the recent developments, which is always upcoming, and it is always enabling the society and the people and the factories and the productions all are moving in a upward direction. Yeah, thanks, us. Yes. Okay. So coming on to the unique solutions that we are actually providing, what we are actually working on. The AI, the IoT, and all those. So what actually is happening is all the data are lying there in the industry, lying there in the domain, in the space. Probably it has not been better utilized for the lack of understanding, for the lack of computing power, for the lack of different formattings, making into uniform formatting. So that is the current challenges which the industries are facing towards the upgradations. So what in Impactsure, what we have actually done is we have been able to extract all the data and derive the context out of the data. That is important. So we have our own AI-based engines, AI-based algorithms, which can read the data maybe from any PDF files or maybe from any image. It takes for example, it takes the photograph and say like, okay, who is this person is, or is this a person, or this is an item, whether this product is for example, the color grade is correct or the shape is correct. So all those kind of informations can be read from the image, or we can even use sensors for that matter. We can use proximity sensors, we can use optical sensors, we can use camera as a sensor. And also like this has been widely used in the agriculture sector as well, where like we used to measure the soil moisture, whether used to measure the water flow into a farm or a field. So all those kind of sensors is also able to give us the data. And again, the audio files, the different, like for example, we record the speech and we take the audio files and all those. And there are other the old data, for example, which is there in the spreadsheet, like people have stored in the Excel sheet or in types of spreadsheets, or it is in the different database. So all those things are processed, and the context out of it is derived. So that is actually like, so far if you talk about the industrial the updates or the softwares, it was able to take data out of it, but taking the context out of it was the most important thing. Was the next level of getting into the automation thing is. So deriving the context means, for example, we read the contract and we are able to tell like this contract is what this contract is talking about, what is the positivity or what is the negativity that it will impact you. And same like it has been used in some bank guarantees. Okay, so we read the bank guarantees and understand the risk factors behind that guarantee. If you execute this guarantee, whether it is a risky or less risky. So that way it is understanding the thing. Same way like reading the project drawings. So reading the project drawings is actually a very complex thing. So to understand the project drawings and what are the parameters used in the drawings. So for example, if you have a huge repository of drawings and you want to search among the drawings, it is impractical. You have to physically go and verify whether this particular data is there or not. So if in case like, for example, you want to you have a drawing and you want to search for a bolt, okay, 10 mm bolt. Okay, well you can easily search from this contextual searches. It can understand, okay, this drawing is talking about the 10 mm bolt which is there in that particular drawing. So that way that hello, someone has said I can't hear you. Am I audible, Yasmin, Ashish?
Yes, Subramanian, we can hear you.
Okay, okay, fine. Maybe some other issue. Okay, so that's the context that we are deriving out of it, and then we are actually using that context to give you various types of reports, various informations out of it, and derive the value out of that, and this will definitely increase your productivity, and it will increase the customer trust, like because you being a quick responsive and all those, and the cost effectiveness. Okay, the cost effectiveness of the things. Okay. Yeah, this will increase, in turns will increase the revenue, and it will increase the customer relationship. Okay. Yeah, Yasmin, Ashish, you can go for the next question.
Thanks, Subramaniam. That was insightful for people who would like to know about adoption, utilizing, and skilled labor. I believe I would like to ask a question to Ashish. Ashish, we know SMEs and enterprises, and they are now adopting digital technologies. So, is automation driving rapid adoption of digital technologies, or how is Impactsure technology supporting enterprising and adding value? So, I would request you to answer this one.
Thank you, Yasmin, and a good day to all. I'm hoping that everybody is doing safe and sound in these difficult times. So about the adoption, I would want to start it is that it is not one answer. So we have seen customers across multiple industry, across various sizes, adopting tech in a different manner. So when it comes to customers, and we have seen with Impactsure and also in our previous experiences, we have been talking to customers across a textile, pharma, chemical, agri-tech, some kind of a bottling plant, and various other companies. And we have seen them across multiple stages of the life cycle of how what has been the adoption. And we have seen people who have been not tech at all. For example, they have just started using email and Word and Excel probably, with some people have with some company having started to working on some software which they have mostly from a accounting point of view. And we have seen customers across using Tally, SAP, Oracle, and other local vendors are also there when it comes to adoption and when it comes to the manufacturing processes. Within that also we have seen companies using technology at various processes a bit differently. The way they are handling their manufacturing processes versus a customer relationship, how they're handling supply chain, how they have handling the employees engagement is a bit different. And then we have also seen that how do we understand the current landscape of the current IT landscape. And here also we have seen various varieties. Some people are still on a homegrown application. Some people are still on an on-premise application because there are some compulsion reasons for that. And some people have moved on to a cloud network where Google, Azure, or AWS, and then a various software application with them. We at Impactsure, we always understand the current problems from a customer point of view. We understand that whatever has been done in the past, there is a reason that has to be done, and we have to live within that and to see how we can improve it further with our consulting approach, with our tech approach. So from a integration point of view, we have built various integration layers so that we can adopt the information, we can adopt the documents, as Subbu mentioned in the beginning, that from the current landscapes, be it a file server, be it a FTP file, be it some kind of a Tally, ERP, some of the systems, and how we can bring the data and add value to it. So this is from the tech point of view. I will still say that the major challenges when it comes to the digital adoption is still a people issue. And I would like to say that when we start talking to a client, independent of its size, whether this is a SME, a mid-market, or even a corporate, there is a vision which the management has about how they want to see the adoption, how they would want to get the ROI from the software application, from the solution, which will solve a particular problem. But when we talk to people across various levels, right? Be in the customer team, be it in the supply chain team, being in the inventory team, being in the warehouse team, even the contractor who are not actually employed by the customer, they are a subcontractor for them. The adoption of any kind of tech has to be across these various layers. And then there is a bit of a obstacle which we have seen across the customer base, and obviously this is a change management which is a lot more people centric rather than a process or a tech centric. So, and we have had we know how to work with people, and it's always important to understand that even if there's a bigger vision at place, what is the end user getting from the software? I think that is the ultimate question we have to answer, that how is the end user who was doing a certain work in a particular way, how is any software, how is any technology, big or small, whatever it is, cloud based, on premise based, how is that going to solve that particular customer, particular user pain point? Specifically in enterprise software, understanding the user persona is very important. Unlike the B2C sector, where there are millions of customers across various ages and all, we have to understand that how the user persona is reacting to a particular change, which a digital platform we will enforce it to them. So this is very important for us to, apart from the landscape, apart from the customer sizes, apart from the current system in place, it's very important to understand the people aspect of any change management which a software has to imply, and we have to work with that. Yasmin?
Thanks, Ashish. I agree with you. User adoption and having skilled workforces is important. So that's one of the challenges that we face with the clients. I have one more question I believe that I will take forward with Subramaniam. With smart resources and equipment connectivity, we are talking about IoT and cyber threats these days. Can we manage it safely with digital technology? What you have to say when people are using tech products, especially our products in the market and SMEs and manufacturing industry?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks. This is actually a very important question, and we have faced many customers who actually get the application developed. They'll be able to satisfy what actually the customer requirements are, but that application won't be secured. This will be exposed only when there is an issue. So like this customer gets scaled, you start using the application, they put important data, they also give it to their end users, and once maybe after a year or two when they start using it, at that time they face a lot of security concerns. They get hacked, or the information gets leaked out, they get threat kind of a saying, like your data has been hacked. Or also they get a kind of blockages, like for example there are so many cyber attacks where they block your port. So what happens is actual users may not be able to access your application at all. It will be down completely. So this is one side of the story. Other side, when the technical team comes to us saying like we got into this problem, there are certain situations where the system is not being able to develop, a system not actually been like it's not designed to do such activities or to handle such threats. So what happens, there is a situation where complete data itself is lost. For example, there are customers who have lost 2 years, 3 years data, and that too, the data may be customers' data or maybe sensitive data, and certain times like they have to restart their complete business again. So those kind of high-level damages we have seen. So that's very, very important, and people has to take care of during the design time itself. It is worth spending that money. The amount which has been spent on the security, because whenever we go for the negotiation, this is the first thing get negotiated out, because people don't realize what actually the impact is. Currently, like spending few thousands extra for the security standards and the design standards to maintain the data secured. Probably in future, or even one single instance, it is like a medical insurance. Whenever there is a problem, then only we'll understand how important the medical insurance is. Otherwise, it will be just draining our money. That is how we'll fail at. But when one time it is actually getting used, that repays all those money. But it's very important that people should take care of the security aspects in the design time itself. So it has to be designed to the high secured and highly, like if you see the current scenario, and maybe like during the past also, the development will be always behind the hackers. Hackers are running at least 2 to 3 months or even 2 to 3 years ahead of development technologies. So for example, like we are trying to fix some hacking, or we are trying to follow some preventive mechanism for hacking, but by this time the hackers would have already gone 2 years ahead, and they would have been working on some other technology. They would have been, for simple example, they would have been working how to hack a blockchain. Blockchain is yet to get developed, and it is yet to get into the more renowned uses, but still hackers would have been already started working on that. And that's the reason that the security is very, 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 very important. So coming to the security and the how it can be prevented. So there are multiple things in the security itself. So first and foremost is the application security. We call it as a, for example, whenever we develop a product, whenever we develop application, that application should be secured. So the data has to be secured and it has to be recoverable. Like when there is a failure, then the data has to be recoverable. And also how much data is recoverable. Like you need to recover each and every data because everything is attached to cost. Okay, so we can design that a system which recovers the data to the last minute. That will have a cost. We can design a system which has a recoverable like last 24 hours. So that has a different cost. So all those has to be considered, like what is the criticality of your data and how long it has to be also preserved. Like for example, you need your old data for 1 year, for 3 years, for 6 months, for your lifelong. So all those and everything again bundles with the cost. So it has to be optimized. I wouldn't say like we should reduce the cost. We have to optimize the cost because cost will be there. We have to spend some cost on that, but it has to be optimized so that we are spending right amount of money onto that and right amount of energy onto that. So the first point is that, as I said, it's a application security. So we have to ensure that application cannot be hacked. And there are multiple standards. Generally, we follow the OS. We call it as OS top 10, like top 10 vulnerabilities we call. So that is the first kind level of testing. It ensures that that somebody cannot hack your database. Somebody cannot hack your the application servers or services we call. So that is the first thing. And second thing, okay, if it got hacked, what is next? Okay, what kind of data they will be able to extract from it? Then we have to encrypt those data. So up to some extent we have to prevent hacking. And second, okay, unfortunately it has happened. Now at least we should now have the second level of protection, that it is not exhibiting or not letting out the sensitive data. So that has to be the second level of security concern. And the third is actually also the network security. So it is not like that you are just securing your applications, but your network also has to be secured. Most of the industries in the manufacturing sectors, they would have a on-premise servers and on-premise machines, and many times this has been a question like on-premises versus cloud. What is best? So from especially from a security point of view, on-premises might look like a secured thing because the computer which you so-called the data holding machines, it is under your nose. But virtually it is also connected to a network, and that network is also exposed to a hacking mechanism, and that also has to need a protective mechanism. And if it is connected to internet, it is even more vulnerable. It is even more prone to hacking, and you have to secure your servers. So as I said, the hackers are actually going way ahead of the development. You wouldn't have enough security mechanisms, softwares or firewalls installed and updated. You might have, like, for example, you purchase a server 1 year back and you have all the firewalls installed during that purchase time. The manufacturer will suggest, the vendors will suggest, everybody would suggest and will give you a good intact, highly secured server. Maybe you spend few lakhs and you get your server intact and secured. Okay, but maybe after 2 months, 3 months, the firewalls or the applications, whatever they have put on that will be outdated. There could have been a separate patch. So somebody has to be on top, looking at the market, looking at the updates. What are all the firewall security you have used? What are all the antivirus you have used? What are all the malwares you have used? So all those has to be kept on track, and it has to be kept on track along with the latest trend that is happening in the industry. So it is very difficult for you to go and read through what is actually happening in the hacking sector. So what actually software has been recently broken, where they have broken, what actually there's been things being done. So this is practically impossible, and also it is a huge cost consuming stuff. So that is why the cloud comes in very handy. So for example, we generally go with AWS or Azure or Google, which is pretty much standard cloud service providers. So they have a separate team, and they have a very watchful network team, which is actually taking care of these things on a daily, day in, day out basis. So they have their servers updates, have their security patches very frequently up to date. And also they provide the upcoming, like the uptimes also they provide a very strong, like maybe 99 percent uptime also they provide. So that is how the cloud comes in place, and that comes very handy in terms of security and state of the data is concerned. So that is very important, and people have to give emphasis, give importance to the security and the data security mix.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Subru. So I think people would be knowing that what things to be kept in mind and what are the factors that's relating or no taking towards the threat. I have another question for Ashish. How's the Impactsure supporting in cost reduction while we are still sustaining quality or delivering good results, reliability? Do you think that is manageable with a tech product which we have at Impactsure? Can you please frame your answer?
Sure. So Yasmin and I would like to talk to the entire team here who have been listening to us. So we at ImpactSure have been working on the real customer pain points. All the application, all the solution which we have built is for a given of for a customer base with whom we have talked to, spoken to across a user base. So I'd just like to share my screen and show some of the applications, some of the solution which we have built, and I'll talk in depth about a few of them. Is my screen visible to all?
Not yet, Ashish.
Okay, hold on.
Yep.
Can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So the ImpactSure portfolio is called the Sure Suite. So we have taken the name of Sure from ImpactSure, and we think this is a very positive word in the current world. So we call our platform a Sure Suite. And within the Sure Suite, we have applications across various portfolio. And I'll be talking about some of them. So and all our portfolio of application is centered around people, is centered around the processes which a manufacturing company has. And we have also worked with a lot of companies who already have a ERP in place or a MRP in place or a workflow system in place, and we can integrate with them. We can integrate with them either with a API or a XML layer, and there are other ways of adoption also. For example, in case we get a PDF scanned file from them, since our expertise is into understanding the right context of any document, we can read those scanned files also and start our subsequent activity. So that is how we link to the current IT landscape which the customer may have. Coming to our Sure Suite, which is on the screen right now. So I'll talk about few of them now. So one of the most popular application, which is very well fitted from a SME point of view, is a Sure Desk. So Sure Desk, the first instance which we have built was around for a customer complaints management. So most of the customers, most of our clients have some kind of application by which the invoices could be sent, by which the order can be sent. But when it comes to customer complaints management, there was hardly any software application which we have, which they had. So we came up with this interesting software application. This is at a high level, it's primarily a workflow engine, and let me get into the depth of this. So the idea is that any kind of a customer complaints which has, how can the customer themselves can raise an issue ticket in our client's website, and how the ticket can then be routed to the different personnel within the company depending on what issue they have. And in this case also, apart from the typical workflow, we have also using a lot of documentation. So any kind of documentation, be it the invoice, be it the delivery challan, be it the drawing which the customer may have, how to extract that some data from that and populate into our workflow engine so that it is not the user need not enter all the data manually. So there's less room for error. So that is one of the key things which we have done. And once the customer issue has been raised, how do we track it across to the sales rep, across to the warehouse person, across to the somebody who is in charge of the delivery, how the information is seamlessly passing, and how the TAT or the SLA can be managed. So that is how what we can do within our software also. And the key benefit I wanted to highlight, this is completely a configurable tool, and I want to show you some more things which we have done with this. And it improves the SLA of the customer, and this will in turn lead to better ROI in case the customer's customers are happy, the SLAs are good, the turnaround time is good. I think there is a direct impact on the revenue of the customer as well. It improves the transparency. Nobody has to call somebody, nobody has to WhatsApp somebody what happened to my issue, who's working on that. It is all within our software application. Somebody can see what is happening there and then take action on that. It enables self service. For example, the customer themselves, any kind of people within the company can work on it. And the most important part is the analytics. So that I think is very important. For example, after 6 months, after 1 year, if you really want to know what has been my SLA across the different time, who has been working on what, are people fulfilling the SLAs or not? So our software gives a quick glance of those SLA as well. We have built a beautiful analytics layer from our various data which we get, and you see some screenshot of some of the application which we have built. Coming to the other use cases which can be linked to this, and it was very interesting use case. We are talking to a chemical company, and that company had a R&D team, and that R&D team also had some kind of a need of how the workflow needs to be managed, right from the ideation to the inception to the execution of new chemical formula which they would wanted to do. And for this also, we had enabled a similar kind of a workflow using the same engine which we have, so that we can keep our cost low, and the same cost we can pass it on to the client also. And the workflow we have configured, the fields we have configured, the data which was extracted from the various Excel file which they had was configured. But the end goal was similar, that how do you improve the TAT, how do you improve the SLA, how do you improve the transparency while keeping the cost low. So this was one example of the Shiodesk application which we have highly configured across multiple customer base which we have. So that's one of the things. Let me move to the left side and talk about ShowPlan. ShowPlan is one of the latest baby on the block, the latest kid on the block. And this is about how do you manage your sales planning, material planning, and capacity. Many of the companies whom we work with, they may already have a system to handle the customer's order. They may have a separate system to handle the procurement or the supply side. And they may have a third system to handle the production planning, the item master, material master, and so on and so forth. But what lacks or what is missing is that there's no singular or there's no single platform where the planning can be done. How do I know that whether my customer commitment, which we have to meet with a new sales order coming in, can that be met or not met? So those kind of challenges was still there, and any kind of a lack of visibility. For example, what typically used to happen is that any customer who shouts the most gets the order fulfilled, whereas the other customers whose order came before and where some kind of a commitment was met is somehow the slippage is happening. So with our software, what we have done is, again, we have integrated to the various current IT landscape which the customer has, for the demand, which is the sales order, from the supply point, which is the purchase order, from the current capacity, which is the production system, which they have, and any kind of a material master or item master, including the bill of material, which they have. We brought it all to a one platform, doing some kind of a seamless integration within them, and then build some kind of a planning module. So what is happening is that whenever a new sales order comes in, we can quickly look at my current stock, my current purchase order in transit. I can look at my current capacity and quickly plan. And the best part is that in case something is not there, in case some resources is not there, it could be component stock being not be there, or maybe the purchase order not being coming on time, or the capacity from a third party or from a co-maker which is not there. We send an alert to the right user to the right time. We need not wait to the last moment when things are already gone, when things are already read. We can give an alert to the right person at the right time so that action can be taken. So with the due delivery, with the due diligence of our software, we can give the right alerts to the user so that they know what is important, what has to be done when, so they can take an action on that. So let me quickly show you a quick screenshot of how the planning has to be done. And this planning can be across the in-house, the co-makers, the third party, and then using the bill of material, we can drill down into the various component level, and each component we can find out what is the current stock, what is the purchase order, and so on and so forth. And mind you, all the data is coming from multiple systems. So that kind of aggregation layer is something which we have made here. So the planning activity along with the tracking activity, we have to do, we have to take it up. We have taken up with the system. So this is again leads to a better customer commitment, so that my revenue will improve, my cost will go down, so that there's no wastage within my supply chain. That is the second software application which I want to talk about. The third one, let me talk to you about a show stock, which you see on the right hand side here. So the genesis of this software application, we had a few customers who had a huge warehouse and they had multiple warehouses in and across Mumbai, and they could be some in Mumbai, Bhiwandi, Karnataka, Hyderabad, and so on and so forth. So how do you first of all know where my stock currently is? And again, these systems, all these warehouses may be following different systems. Some may be using a Spectrum system or a Tally system or some other warehouse management system which they have. And some customer may be doing simply doing on an Excel. Excel, I think, is the most popular of all these tools. So most of the things are done in Excel and Word and PPT. So this kind of a landscape was there. Now, whenever a new goods were received from a invoice with the suppliers will send, how do I know that which of the items is coming to my warehouse? So what we did here was that we built a software application which reads these invoices, which we again be coming from multiple format. Some coming maybe coming in an Excel, which is lucky for us. Some may be coming in a Word format. Some may be coming in a PDF scan format. So how do we extract the data using an AI from all these invoices and populate something called a kind of a good receipt process? After we know that what goods are in my holding area or which have come to my warehouse, now when I have to stack them at a particular shelf and a row, we have built a very lightweight mobile application, because most of the people who are working on a warehouse typically have a smartphone and they can walk around with the smartphone in the pocket and they can quickly scan the items with the barcode or the QR code. And we have also given a location. So for example, each location we can scan and just keep it there. And we can keep on scanning. It's almost similar to the any kind of retail outlet which you go where people scan those barcodes and all those things. So we have barcode, QR code. So we know that particular goods have been kept at a particular shelf. At any point in time, if we want to have a visibility, what is my current stock, visibility, we can obviously get from that. Now coming to the demand side. So coming to the demand side, if I now want to know that how goods have to be issued once the order has been come. In this case also, the customer had a separate order management system. They were using a Google Sheet to handle all the orders, all the inquiries which they got either from WhatsApp or from email or from a Word document and all those things. So we could get the data from that order system also and put it into our system. And now when the goods have to be issued, we tell the user, hey, look here, this particular stock is in location A, location B. You can go there and pick the item up. And again, the subsequent process of how the data could be scanned again from the mobile phone is used so that you can know what goods have been issued. So this turnaround time of goods issue, goods picking, these are not very big guys like Walmart and all those. Because these are SMEs who do not have maybe the budget to buy those big fancy software. But our software being a cost effective software, and we have customized it, or we have configured it for them so that it works in their premise, it works on cloud, it works on a mobile device also, and they can do these kind of things. And just to show you some more examples, so this is how we can pick up. We have a mobile application also of how the things can be taken up and all those things. And we can do a good issue, good tracking, goods movement, stock keeping, and all those things. From all of this, the key important thing again is the data analytics. So again, once after 6 months and 1 year, once the customer knows that, now we can, with the real data, we can find out that what goods are lying idle, what goods are going obsolete, what goods are moving fast, and which will help me to plan for the next year. For example, in the summertime when there is a agriculture cutting time, the sugar canes are cut, right? So in that time, there are certain bearings which this company was using, this company was talking, the supply used to go up in that side. Now we have the data, right? That okay, in that particular summer season or some other season, a particular type of SKU, a particular type of stock keeping unit was more in demand. So now with the data, we can help the customer to do a better planning for future demand cycles also. So once the data is in the right place, in the right order, even if the customer has multiple systems and which is there currently, this our platform can become one source of truth where how the planning is done, how the tracking is done, and how the forecasting can be done using the past data for future sake. So that's one more advantage which we can take from our software application for the Sure Stock. Now let me talk about Sure Logistics. So this is again a interesting application where we use various technologies, including AI, including RPA, including a bit of a IoT also. And I just want to talk about this a bit more. So Sure Logistics is about customers who was using a lot of a third-party courier company for both inbound and outbound goods movement. And these customers had typical issues that they were not using their in-house truckers because the volume was not that much, but they were using lots of courier companies around 12 or 12, 13 odds. And this was all across the place: Safe Express, DTDC, Delivery, so on. And there are multiple such companies. So what the key problem here was that how do I track, how do I know where my goods currently are? That was the first important problem area. The second was that how do I know that what was the real cost, what was the actual cost I had to pay, and what was the cost which I actually paid? Because sometimes depending on the box size, right, box dimensions, the courier charges a bit differently, because the courier company charges based on the volumetric weight and not on the actual weight. And the volumetric weight is dependent on the weight actually, plus the size of the boxes and all. So with our with software application, depending on the box dimension in inches and centimeter, depending on the weight, depending on the from and to pin code, we can also plan the estimated courier cost. So this is what becomes a kind of a reference or a baseline to start the shipping process. And once the actual goods or actual cost is received from the courier company, we can quickly match whether there's a discrepancy or not. That is the first important thing. The second thing is that how do you quickly create a shipping list? So for shipping list, typically this company had an invoice or a DC for the goods which has to be shipped now. So now in the absence of any software, they're actually maintaining a paper and pen or a Excel where they were copying the items, box numbers and all those things, and then putting the label on the boxes like this is my shipping list. What we have done based on our AI technique of how we can read the invoices, how we can read the DCs, we can quickly read that, get the most important information, the buyer information, the consignee information, the buyer contact name, and the items along with the quantity. So the only thing which the user has to do is just enter the box number, and by entering the box number, my shipping list is ready. And this becomes a ready document for to be given to my courier company. So the courier comes and takes the courier away. The third most important thing was which we have done is that what was happening that since this company was using multiple courier companies and all this courier company had a different website. So to know where my goods currently is, I had to go to those website, key in my LR number or the AWB number and get the status back into my system. So anybody who is calling me, the customer, the salesperson is calling me, I have to go to the website and get the data. What we have done using the RPA, robotic process automation tool, we have integrated all this 12, 13 websites and getting all the data into our software, so that our software becomes our platform becomes one platform by which all the tracking can be done in one place. So the users across all the department need not go to any other place. All is in the same place. And again, the advantage of this is that we can get the various analytics of where my shipments are going, of where is my higher density. So for example, in case I have to plan for a future warehouse, where do I build? So using the past data, using the geo mapping, we can find out, okay, where my future warehouse have to be now built. And this can also do a bit of a forecasting that, okay, depending on the past demand, what kind of volumes I'm looking for. This can also tell you who are your good performing versus bad performing courier companies, so that you can take an action on them. So that is what we have done in this particular software application. Yasmin, how much time I have?
Yeah, you can take a couple of minutes more, then we have audience questions.
Okay, so then I'll probably talk about one more thing. This is slightly advanced. This is AI-based application which we have built. We're calling the Sure Search. And as Subbu mentioned in the beginning, that many companies have huge documentation. So this documentation could be a drawing, could be handwritten, could be in multiple languages. And these are very difficult to read. These are lying in the repository for last 20, 30 years. So anybody new comes in, and the people may have moved. Anybody new comes in, it's very difficult for them to find what has been done in the past. So the use case here could be that, okay, I have to, let's say this customer has to bid for a new RFP or a new proposal. And they know that something similar was done in the past, 10 years back, 6 years back. How do I quickly search within my past repository and get the right information? What was the material used? What was the contractor used? What was the pricing which I had given? What was the specification which I had used? And these documents are there. These documents are perhaps lying in some scanned file, some folder somewhere. So the company has actually done that. But how do I get the right data? That is very difficult. So what we have done is that we have built a kind of what we call a Sure Search, where we have used a lot of AI techniques, and this is much more than OCR, by the way. So OCR just extracts the data from the text. We can extract the data from the images, from the drawings, from the logos, and so on and so forth. As for example, on the screen, if you look at it, on the left side, you see a sample data file. This is consisting of a typed, handwritten, not very well scanned. There may be a orientation differences and all those things. So we have been able to digest such data, and this data was lying in some common folder, not in the cloud also. And this data was also huge volume. So the customer whom we're talking to, they had 43 TB of data. It's a huge amount of data which they had. We had taken the data using some AI algorithms. We have been able to index it, and we have been able to put it in some kind of a format by which it becomes very easy for the user to search for this. So the screenshot which you see on the right hand side is the user searching for a particular term which was there in one of the scanned files where this was handwritten. So these kind of things we are able to extract and put it into our put it for the user also. The third thing which you have done is very important here is that entity mapping. So uh, our software application using the AI logic, we are also able to identify the entities. What are those? So entities can be any legal company name or a place name or a material name or a category name, email addresses, pin codes, zip codes, date format. Date format is one thing which we kept on asking, right? So across the globe, people use multiple date format. We in India use DDMMYY. In US, they use MMDDYY. In Europe, they use comma instead of a dot. So there are multiple variations. So the AI logic which we have built is able to understand the data in multiple format and build some kind of an entity mapping from that also. So what is also happening on a software application is whenever somebody is searching for a particular term, what a system is giving you, the term is obviously the output, plus any kind of things which was linked to that particular entity is also being given as a output. For example, in case we're searching for a particular company name, so apart from the company name, we can also give you what kind of goods and services this company can give you. If you're looking for a particular vendor, we can look at this vendor, so and so category of goods, so and so metals was good, so and so location also. So all this entity mapping, name, addresses, location, category, goods is all done within a entity mapping, and that can be given as a search result, so that somebody who has to bid for a RFQ, they can quickly look at what was the past information, take a output in a PDF or a download it, and they can quickly make a new proposal. So thus saving time, and thus able to respond faster, which again in turn will lead to a better cost. So this is a fifth which I want to talk about, fifth application, and the others on the screen which you look at, just talk very briefly about it. SureTrack you see on the right hand side here. This is about installation, maintenance, and repair work. So many companies use third-party employees to do this kind of work. So all kind of a project planning, including the drawing, including the work order, including task management, it can be done for that. And it also offers a very lightweight mobile application for the contractors on the field to take photos, to enter the quantity, and just submit it. That's what we have done there. Sure Locate very quickly is all about how do you keep track of your field agents, be it pre-sales or your post-sale, your support staff on the field. It's like a Uber or a Ola taxi. You know where people are. Any kind of task which you want to assign to them, given their proximity with the location, can be done using the Sure Locate. And last but not the least is Sure People on the right hand top, on the left hand top here. This is a kind of an employee engagement platform which we have built. So we want to have the employees happy, how they can engage with each other, how they can kind of a organizational announcement, any kind of a discussion thread can be done. So that's what we have done in Sure People. So with that, I would just like to end my talk here. Yasmin, back to you.
Thanks, Ashish. I think you have brilliantly explained SureSuite, and everybody must have understood the application of our product. I can see a few questions on the chat box, and I would like to take those. There are a couple of questions. The first one is from Rajendran Cherukanda. It looks like he had been talking to us in the past. The process in a manufacturing segment varies with each and every unit. Generally, MSMEs are facing difficulty in getting that processes automated or digitized. As a developer is not aware of the processes, this is difficult and is facing difficulties faced even when established ERP software providers. Is there a solution for this problem?
Yes, I mean, let me answer
Yes.
this. That's true. Like, if you talk about different SMEs, they have their own set of process, and there are a lot of challenges here. Okay, so the expertise what we bring in is like we have the experience. So essentially, you told like have experience in the manufacturing sectors. I've worked for production units. I've worked for small segment manufacturers. So I also practically have gone through all this difficulty. So when we design our software, we make it very much configurable. Okay, and it will be configurable to the extent that it will be able to use for the small industries as well as the large corporates. And again, like certain areas, it cannot be like one size t-shirts fit for all. Though, so there we will have a different solutions for SMEs, and for corporates it may be a different solution. But underlying technology could be the same. For example, as we mentioned, reading the document, reading OCR, reading PDF, reading. So it may be an SME or it may be a corporate. They will have the PDF. The invoice is going to come from a PDF. Okay, invoices format may be different, but it will be the invoices that has to be read from a PDF file. So that way the underlying technologies are common, but again configurations are different, and there will be a different set of challenges to be faced, and different set of cost effectiveness will be there. So all these challenges are there, and I think we have so up to some extent we have overcome all those, and we are still like solving the problems for many of those areas.
Sounds good, Subbu. Thank you so much. And I think we have just 3-4 minutes to go. I can see one more question from Vadival Kumaraswamy. What is the error percentage of your tool while manipulating different form of input data? For example, while your tool read any PDF data, you said Excel format is good for your tool. Ashish Subbu can elaborate on this answer.
Ashish.
Yeah, I can go for. Yeah, I think the key forte which we have built is that understanding the document, be it in any format. PDF, scanned PDF is one of the most toughest thing which we have done. But I think over a period of time, our accuracy have improved significantly. Let me give examples. We are working with a US-based client who are into healthcare, and they're doing some lot of employee onboarding forms. And these forms are poorly scanned, handwritten, type, mixture, dot here and there. So when we started off with them, sometime mid of the last year, our accuracy was close to around 77% from a accuracy point of view. But over very quickly, because we are using AI, we're using machine learning. Machine learning, the best part is that unlike a rule engine, machine learning learns. It's almost like a human being. So very quickly, right, within 3 to 4 weeks, our accuracy started going up. So we are at today's point, I think we are almost close to 97% accuracy. Having said that, I just want to highlight one thing, that 100% accuracy in AI is a dystopia. I don't think that's something which can be achieved. For example, if it achieves that, then it almost become a rule engine. But I will say that to begin with, given our experience with any kind of standard documentation, including PDF and all those things, we can safely say that around 80% accuracy is something which you can give out of box, and then it further training, we can improve it up to 95+%. So if you want to add anything.
Yeah, one more thing I want to add here is that especially that the efficiency is in the scanned documents. So if it is a Excel, the data is 100%.
Correct.
The data 100%. If it is even in PDF also, there are two types of PDFs. One is actually the normal machine generated PDF, and other is the scanned PDF. So machine generated PDF means like you create a invoice in your Excel and then save as PDF, or you create an invoice in Word document and save as a PDF. There also the efficiency will be 100%. There is no chance of error. Okay, but when you, for example, you take a print and then scan it, or like you use it for some days, you keep it here and there, like scribble on it, then the paper quality gets deteriorated, scan quality gets questionable. Okay, so that is where actually the efficiency plays a big role. But otherwise, like so far whatever we have seen in other examples in normal industries, people generate invoice through Tally and then send it to direct PDF. So those are like 100%. There is no chance of error at all.
Okay, sounds good. So before we close the session, there is one question I believe it will benefit the audience. What are the best practices for manufacturing industry for digital technology adoption that can help? So probably we can close the session with this question. Subbu, you can answer.
Yeah, sure. Let me take that. So from a best practices point of view, see again that the industry and this complete thing is going towards digitalization. So like we have to go towards the digitalization. There is no choice. It is only when you want to do, and how much you want to do, and how much you can afford to do. This is the question, so that you can stagger it and you can push it as much as possible, or you can probably compensate with your revenue or your income. So that is, I think that's the challenge, or that's the key questions that people would have. So I think like we should start the digitalization journey. Okay, let's get onboarded into the train. We may not be like having the endpoint ticket in hand, but at least we should start. So to start, it can be very minuscule thing that stop using anything which is a non-standard. Like for example, like at least the invoices that you are sending, send it through a digital copies, to send it through a mail. This is the first step towards the digitalization. It doesn't need anything extra. Like Google email is free of cost. Okay, Excel is online Excel is very minimal charges. Okay, start using the digital things. Avoid using like WhatsApp saying that like, okay, pay me this amount and get that amount. Okay, so that way it will be very difficult to like in future it will be very difficult to go with the digital journey. But I think at least people can start with digitalization journey. Like Excel can be the best tool, Word can be the best tool, and there are certain freewares also available in Word and Excel and all. LibreOffice are all there free, like it's there. So the point is start, and anyway it is, even people have the mobile, they don't even need to invest for a computer. They can simply use their handset, and handset is everywhere. Like have WhatsApp or any other tool, they already have it in their system on hand. So they should be able to start this journey, and probably then slowly when they are able to invest, they can start going and investing, like buy a second-hand laptop, then go ahead and invest it in that, and then probably you might buy a new laptop, or then buy the MS Office or the Excel, PowerPoints, and then slowly they can come. Like once they get into that need, then all the other things would start in place. So I think that would be the best point, that people should start the digital journey, and tomorrow maybe they should start today. How much and where and what digitalization people can decide on their current state, but I think we should start.
Yes, so that's well said. Tomorrow would be late. So let's begin today. With this, I would love to close the session that we started an hour ago. I do not see any more question. I would like to ask if anyone is having any further question. We can take one more for you. So it looks like there's no questions from the audience, and I think we have answered most of the information shared. That I think I have taken care of the questions. So with this, I'm liking to just say thank you so much for your preparation, coming and spending time with us to give us insight about manufacturing benefits, technology benefits for the manufacturing industry, and outcomes to drive great profits and ROI. So this has been interesting journey for all of us. Great to know once a factory can be an e-factory with right digital technology adoption. So today the workforce can be skilled and efficient, and they can drive revenues through must-have digital products. Certainly, I believe it's time for us to take a shift from a traditional approach to a most beneficial approach with the tech products that is meant for us. So with this, Yasmin Sheikh, signing off from Impactsure Technology Digitalk, and would love to hear from you in future. You can please feel free to us to write on an info ID. I'll just write the info ID in the chat box for your benefit. We would love to hear from you, and we would love to take up a conversation if you have any question related to any of our SureSuite product. Over to you. Thanks so much. And anything else you want to say, Subbu, Ashish? Bye from my end.
Thanks a lot, Yasmin. Thanks a lot to all the participants. Thanks for listening to us.
Thank you all. Stay safe. Stay at home. Bye.